we got it. We got it, sir.
Roger, that's fuel management is your priority, not mine.
This pilot has concerns about his fuel, and instead of air traffic control telling him, okay, let me see what I can do, he has a very narcissistic, entitled attitude and basically tells the pilot, I don't care, it's not my problem, and it escalates from here. Check this out.
Traffic here.
Breakdown 5628, all right, follow the CRJ9 that's directly ahead of you, monitor tower.
Oh, CRJ in front. Tower, Victor.
United 2005, turn right on Echo, double Bravo, short of golf, just tighten up behind the 321 that's joining double Bravo ahead of you there.
All right, Bravo, Echo, short of golf, 2005. You know, the we expect our delay here?
Yeah, from now to midnight, you'll get out of here.
Yeah, well, we got it. We got it, sir.
Roger, that's fuel management is your priority, not mine.
All this is happening in LaGuardia, which is an airport I used to fly into all the time when I was flying only passengers. And I don't remember when I used to fly in them saying this double taxiway like they're doing now.
Turn right on Echo, double Bravo.
Typically, if you were to see this in any other airport, as far as I've ever heard, the proper way to say it would be taxi via Bravo, Bravo, not double Bravo, because double is not a normal ICAO word. It doesn't normally communicate, especially if English isn't your first language. It can add all kinds of additional confusion. So I don't remember it being like this, but I also, at the regionals, I didn't have a lot of international exposure, so it maybe wouldn't have caught my attention, but I don't remember them doing that. But apparently the pilots are doing it and air traffic control is doing it, but that's definitely not the way you're supposed to do it. As far as I know, it'd be taxi via Bravo, Bravo. That way anybody from anywhere in the world would know exactly where they're supposed to taxi. Now, LaGuardia is a very congested airport. It has two intersecting runways here, and they have to share airspace with all the planes coming in and out of JFK and Newark, which is why I never really liked flying there when I only flew there. It's very congested, and it'd be often that you'd have a 60 or 90-minute delay sitting on the taxiway in a very uncomfortable seat. And in some cases, I've had a jump seater that's sitting in there, and on the RJ with the jump seater there, it's just very tight. On the 747, it doesn't really matter. There's a lot more space, but 60 to 90 minutes of just sitting there on the taxiway, it's hot, you have fuel concerns, and you just want to kind of get going and get onto your next leg. So I never really enjoyed flying there. Plus, it's very congested. So you'd often hear people ask about their sequence for takeoff. And if you ever notice in my vlogs, or anytime you see me out flying, you'll notice that I always have two numbers written down on a piece of paper that sits in front of me. One is the block fuel. That's the number that the dispatcher is recommending that I leave the gate with, and that is only a recommendation. I'm allowed to push back from the gate with less than that number. It's their recommendation to give me enough fuel to safely taxi to the runway and get off the runway on a minimum fuel requirement number, which is the second number. This number right here, it is a hard number. I need to have that fuel in order to legally take off. That fuel number ensures, according to the dispatcher and all the software, that I'm able to legally fly to my destination and then go to an alternate and have the amount of fuel holding that's required for that. Like, it's different for international and domestic. There's different requirements for different types of flying, but these are the legal requirements, and that fuel score, that fuel number, is what allows me to safely take off and meet all of those requirements. That is a hard number. Now, you can get relief from that number, meaning you can send a message to your dispatcher and say, hey, we're delayed. Our fuel, I think, is going to be this. We need another 20 minutes of sitting here time, burn time with your one engine going or whatever you have happening. And you can say, that's how much fuel I think we're going to burn. Like on the 747, for example, you're sitting there at idle. You can pull up the fuel page. You can see what you're burning on each engine. You can see what you're burning on that engine. So you could say, oh, great, one engine's, so 15 minutes. So you look at one engine's fuel burn, you know about roughly what you're going to burn in 15 minutes while you're sitting there. And you can tell them, hey, we're going to burn about this much fuel sitting here. We need you to reduce our min fuel number by this. And they'll try to see if they can work out a way for you to be able to take off. Keep in mind, the more fuel you have, the better. You'd rather have more fuel because you can always get rid of fuel easier than you can add fuel while you're flying. So it is commonplace, and I used to see it all the time. There'd be a bunch of planes in line, and it's hard to know what your sequence is because you could be in this exact configuration here and think maybe we're number 3, or you could potentially be the exact same planes in the exact same spot, and you could be rearranged, and now you're number 12 for departure. And because they're taking off and landing on intersecting runways, there's a certain balance that needs to happen between both of these. So it's not like they can keep firing you off on departure as quick as they want. And it's not like you can also shut down both engines and just sit next to the runway and they say, hey, you're going to be the next to go, and you fire up the engines and you're ready to go. The manufacturers of these engines have a warm-up time, let's call it like that. Usually you're going to need several minutes to get the engines going, and there's a startup process, so there's some things that need to happen. So it's not like you can just sit there and wait. There are some additional things that you can do to mitigate your fuel burn while you're sitting there though, but you need to know what makes more sense. Do I shut down the engines and do that? And then I'm number 15 in line and you're going to be there for an hour and a half waiting? Okay, great. Well, what if you're number 2? Well, you don't want to shut down the engines because you just burn a lot of extra fuel unnecessarily while you're sitting there and waiting. You will notice sometimes that the pilots will actually taxi out on one engine, especially on a 2-engine aircraft, and that saves fuel. An additional thing you can do is if you're in this configuration like we talked about where you're number 12 and you're not going to be moving for a little while, the other thing you can do is shut down both engines and just have the back engine, which is the auxiliary power unit. You can use that to keep the passengers cool and keep full power to the aircraft. Essentially what I'm getting at is what this pilot's request is not unusual or unreasonable at all. He needs to know, what do I need to do on my end to accommodate what line or sequence you have me in on your end? So shut down one engine, shut down both engines. What is it? I need to go back to the gate and get more fuel. He's trying to plan what he needs to do so he can get into the proper sequence. It's an absolutely normal request. I used to do it all the time when I flew in there. However, air traffic control's response is this.
Roger, that's fuel management is your priority, not mine.
Which then made me really curious. What is the stated purpose and mission of the air traffic control according to the FAA? And I thought it might be something, or I hoped it might be something simple like this: coordinating between airlines and pilots, providing safety, professionalism, and efficiency while constantly earning the trust of the general public. And when I become ruler of all things including aviation, it will be something like that. But for now, this is what it says. Our continuing mission is to provide the safest, most efficient aerospace system in the world. Okay, that's hard to argue with. And if you scroll down here, you're going to notice it says, excellence is our promise. We seek results that embody professionalism, transparency, and accountability. I find it really hard to believe that this person values this core belief of air traffic control, of professionalism and accountability. Doesn't seem that's the way he's acting by the way he's dealing with these pilots. And this airspace, like I said, is very busy. I've never worked as air traffic control, but my perception, especially in a place like LaGuardia where there's the volume of traffic they're dealing with, I would equate it to probably the amount of focus that it takes for a pilot to land an aircraft. But while I have to really focus for 3 to 5 minutes, they have that for 45 minutes. So it's a very high workload, a very high stress load. So I understand and completely understand that the stress level is high, but that doesn't take away from your job is to take care of, to help these pilots while we're out flying, and to be professional and accountable. Because this guy's not doing this, and it gets worse when he starts talking to some other pilots. Check this out.
American 1751, turn right on Echo and then double Charlie, hold short of taxiway Golf.
Echo, double Charlie, short of Golf, American 1751.
Break, yeah, 5725 on your second radio, go to clearance, 135.2.
55-2, pick our 57.5. Ground, 999 sequence.
999, from now to midnight.
That's not a good answer, but thanks for not blowing
That's the best I can do. You want a better answer, contact your dispatch or your company.
No, your line up here is, I'm just looking for a sequence for fuel management. Yes, that's a part of your problem.
Yes, sir. Fuel management is your priority, not mine.
You're an idiot.
I got a number for you whenever you're ready.
Oh, I want it. We want to talk.
Tell the 999, I got a phone number whenever you're ready.
That's so long. Yeah, I want to talk to your manager.
Yes, sir. Manager's up there. He's looking forward to the call.
First, let's address his comment about where he says to contact your company or your dispatcher when he says this.
That's the best I can do. You want a better answer, contact your dispatch or your company.
Now, your dispatchers are the people that the pilots rely on the ground. We have all of our fuel planning done by them. And at my airline and any airlines that are doing international, they have a lot more than just fuel planning. There's fuel planning. There's weather. We have landing permits because you have seen or heard me talk about going on to certain military bases, and there are requirements for that. And then because of the type of flying that I do and the certain things that I fly sometimes and the places that we go, our dispatchers are getting overfly permits. Some countries require permits in order to fly into their airspace. And these dispatchers are responsible for providing all that to me so I can focus on getting snacks and flying the plane. So they do an amazing job to verify that all those things are in place so that way I legally can safely focus on flying the aircraft. That's really their priority, is taking care of all the paperwork stuff and all the back behind the scenes stuff so the plane can safely go. They ensure all those things are in place. And this number, this magic number I keep talking about with the fuel, the dispatcher is the one that comes up with that number. So while I'm sitting there in line waiting for takeoff and not knowing if I'm number 3 or number 12, if I call my dispatcher, which I'm able to do at any time, on the ground, in the air, they always make themselves available because you need the captain to fly and you need the dispatcher. You need both people to be working together in order to make this flight happen. But if I call that dispatcher and say, hey, what number am I for takeoff? He can't look at some magic site and go like, oh yeah, you're number 3. Your fuel burn is going to be this amount. It's the dumbest thing that he could have ever said, because that dispatcher and the company, I can't call my airline and go like, hey, what number am I for takeoff? They don't know. They're dealing with weather and planes and maintenance problems and all this other stuff. They're not going to know that. So this statement here about calling the dispatcher, it doesn't make any sense.
That's the best I can do. You want a better answer, contact your dispatcher or your company.
So then we go to the fuel is your problem, not my problem statement that this controller makes. According to the FAA website, safety is our passion. We work so all air and safe travelers arrive safely at their destinations. Safety is their passion. And this guy doesn't sound passionate about anything except his self-importance. When he's looking at this lineup here, he's not delivering any quality of service at all. And when you look at these values on the website, none of them say pops off at the mouth with a bad attitude, essentially telling the pilots, it's not my problem. Because what they're doing is they're delivering a service, not a product. You can have a product like you make shoes. That's your product. Shoes in good quality. Here's your shoe. They're delivering a service. A service is to the general public to help them feel confident about safely getting to their destination and assisting pilots in helping us to safely get there. And for the vast majority of air traffic controllers, that's exactly what they do. But this guy, not so much. Now, I looked up what it says about us millennials on the internet, and it said we have, quote, traits of confidence and tolerance, but also describes a sense of entitlement and narcissism. Sadly, the millennials are having that label attached to us, and unfortunately, I'm one of the older millennials, but it's the reality. There's a certain level of entitlement and a certain level of narcissism that's happening, which is I'm more important and I'm very important, and that's why you don't really hear a lot of people humble now. It's like everybody's trying to flex, flex, flex. Look what I have, look what I have. There's no like, hey, I'm doing well and I'm just a normal guy. It's a flex, 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 and a lot of people are flexing when they shouldn't be. They should be having a normal car and they're driving something that they could never afford except on a credit card. That's just a cultural thing that's happening with millennials and Gen Z right now. Now, I don't think it's fair to finish this video without talking about what this Delta pilot said.
You're an idiot.
Now, while I personally agree with the attitude of that pilot, it didn't require transmitting it on the radio. I would have been saying far worse things, but not with the keyed up mic. I would have been talking with the other pilot or pilots that I was with, having some select choice words, probably much worse than that about what I thought about them. But keying up the mic and saying that isn't going to help. It isn't going to help you get anything done. It isn't going to accomplish anything. In fact, it might move you to the back of the list, just like some people have a little vendetta and they just go, oh, you want to be like that? All right, I'll be petty. And you were number 6, but now you're number 12. They may just do that just out of pettiness. But to the credit of this Delta pilot, air traffic control calls him shortly after and asks for a favor, and this is what he says.
And L999, while you're at it, tighten up behind the United 73 that's ahead of you. I need the room behind.
Yeah.
Now, either this Delta pilot has more professionalism than me, which is probably the case, or he is less petty than me, which is probably also the case. But I could have easily, me as a person, as petty as I am, especially if I was hungry, have said, sounds like space is your problem, not my problem. He could have easily said that and not moved his jet up. He could have said, oh, well, I got my engines shut down because I don't know what number I am, so it's going to take me a while to spool them up, and sounds like kind of a your problem. Could have easily said that, but he didn't. He just said, okay, cool. He assisted him like a professional would. not like what I'm talking about. You should not do what I was just saying you should do. Now, I'm not sure this is true, but what I read online was this Delta plane that was having the issues with the controller. They ended up having to go back to the gate and leave 6 hours later, probably with a different crew, probably fully stacked up on snacks again. And part of it might have been weather, part of it might have been fuel. I don't know all the circumstances behind, because Delta doesn't give me any of their information, but they ended up leaving, according to the internet machine, they ended up leaving 6 hours later, which if you were a passenger, and this is, if you were hearing all this, what was going on, what I'm talking about, if you were able to listen in to air traffic control and hear all that and hear how that controller was talking with them, you have some New Yorkers on the plane with a similar attitude to this controller, it would have been a very different deal. Now, New Yorker in the past has had some, let's call them sassy controllers, and there's a level of sass, and then there's a level of narcissism and entitlement. I'll let you decide where to draw the line, but without a doubt, when it comes into something like this, fuel, safety, things like that, there shouldn't ever be a level of anything other than professionalism, and that's what this pilot is asking. He could have reduced his fuel load, got the dispatcher to move it down a little bit, removed the alternate, flown at a different altitude. They could have reworked all that stuff, but you don't know how much you need to rework because of air traffic control. And if safety is your number one priority of your pilots, which it should be at every airline, then you're going to want to take that fuel back. You're going to want to get that fuel back so you have the extra fuel to get where you need to go. And if safety is the number one priority of air traffic control, which it should be, then you shouldn't be just telling pilots like, not my problem. That's my opinion. I look forward to hearing from you. Until then, keep the blue side up.